moving on, there was some discussion on Wawa First Nation plan.
Are we on October 13th yet?
13?
There we go,
No?
Yeah.
We are?
Yep, 13. We're reviewing the minutes, and we will pass the minutes, and we will deal with business arising from the minutes.
Okay, I have a clarification on mine for October 4th briefing note, community Wi-Fi. I just wanted more clarification on your why I guess I was noted as opposed, but I just wanted more clarification on the $80 per month. Is that just for off reserve then? Is that what you're saying? I think Robert had a question about that too, the way this was all worded.
I'm sorry, which motion is it?
Yeah.
Number
8.4.
Oh, 8 point, okay. Just a minute.
Because I just want it to be clear for people that are off reserve, because we are allowing people that are off reserve to take advantage of this. And it's already went out on Facebook, I've seen it already, so clarification for briefing note for community Wi-Fi. Just so that everyone understands it, because it's saying $80 per month for the ones, I don't know if it's just for the ones that are off reserve? What?
Oh.
Is community gonna understand this?
I could,
Go ahead.
so the intent behind that piece is that when it's possible for us to make 6 megabytes available to customers, that we make that available at a rate of $80 per month.
For off reserve, or because our bills, if you're on reserve, is only like $40 to $60 a month, right?
Correct. So it's
Community.
beyond reserve only, where we can provide community Wi-Fi. So right now you can purchase 1.5 megabytes for $40. You double that to 3, you pay $60. So with the doubling of overall bandwidth, we believe we'll be able to provide 6, so double it again. And we would charge $80 for that.
Okay, so I guess back to my question is, how are you doing this for off reserve families? Is that clear in that motion? Or maybe it's just me, maybe it's me not understanding it. But that's why I opposed it, because I thought it wasn't very clear.
Just, I guess, I believe we offered that they would come back with a supplementary budget for that piece of off-reserve and post-secondary, because that was raised at this table. And we asked them to come back with a subsequent budget or supplementary budget afterwards for those that are off-reserve, because they'd have to know the amount and what they're paying for. Because theirs is usually unlimited, whatever off-reserve, unlike ours.
So is that clear that says this is only for on reserve, this motion?
It says
Should we put a
community
note
Wi-Fi.
in the minutes then to make that clear?
Yep.
The note should clearly state though, because I think I raised it, is how are we going to provide equal service to all our students? I mean, I know we have a hard time getting funding for students that are off reserve, but I think there's ways we can justify the service. So can we make it clear in the notes that we asked for a briefing package on how we can offset some costs for off-reserve students? And I know that's opening a big can of worms, but that's what we're here for, is for a full membership.
Agreed.
Tyler?
So I just kind of went back to what was posted online, and that just stated for unreserved students. There's no mention of those unreserved. So, I guess really nothing has been made, available to off-reserve students yet. And that's what we were gonna, and then I think that's what we were gonna discuss was how we can work that out, right? And so that's kind of what Marsh was asking for.
But the motion says all within families. So I think that's where it links, and that's where the confusion
Yeah.
comes. And we recognize that we're responsible for all within.
Yeah, I'm just going back to what was
Yeah.
posted on.
Go ahead, James.
And if I recall correctly, the intent behind the word all was that we wouldn't limit it only to BK and AK students, but also students of other schools or homeschool students.
Lee.
Well, when we say all, when they said they're gonna give all, I don't have this on, that won't even get that signal. Like, I was up, I'm trying to get my second year sports and rec, and out of a week at my place, it might work 4 hours. Maybe, so like I said, if we're gonna go in and be spending all the, you're saying that we're spending on for elementary and all these students, I would almost guess that half of them aren't even capable of getting that in the first place. I know, I don't get it. Like, that guy's come to my house probably 4 times a week to regroup. And it works for 2 hours, and then it's straight back to nothing. So like I said, I've been having to travel almost every part of the island trying to find that. And it hasn't been working for me, so I've been having to venture off, trying to find a better one, but I mean, that's what I mean. If you're gonna say everybody, right, I think we're just assuming the people that can get that area signal, because I know a lot of people that I talk to, it doesn't work.
You're correct, yeah. That is a common problem, common issue across the island. Yes, with our deficient system. And I don't know.
Like,
I don't know if throwing our money at it is gonna cure it either, you know?
That's what I mean, I'd love to, I would love to have it, definitely for it right now, it's not, I can't utilize it, so it's not helping me in any way.
Right, James. Then Elaine.
So we can do some further research into some of the solutions we've been looking at since April. One would be LTE packages for families that can't receive a Wi-Fi signal for whatever reason. Part of the challenge is we know some houses can't receive an LTE signal either. But certainly I think the intent behind originally bringing this to council is that we're underserviced generally on reserve, and there's many more families that are limited in connectivity compared to off reserve. But we can see if LTE might help shorten the gap and look at other options as well.
Elaine, then Marcia.
A friend of mine sent me the email or the letter they got from the Catholic board system, and I think their children go to school in town, or Chatham, but anyway, the Catholic school board has come up with this note to the elementary kids that we're getting ready for the second wave, so we're gonna be probably closing the schools again. So it's gonna go back to virtual learning, and not everyone has community Wi-Fi, some of them have XploreNet, so does this motion take those people that are on XploreNet and other services, or is it just for community Wi-Fi that our band does?
The intent was just for community Wi-Fi. If you want, we can get as much information as we can in terms of whether we can overcome some of those gaps through LTE and possibly XploreNet. I think XploreNet will be a more expensive option for council. LTE is fairly cost effective, and there's already partnerships in place, and we have devices available to do that. But we can look at XploreNet as well.
Ron.
I know having XploreNet, they'd only let us buy a package, I think it was 50 gigabyte. We were paying $120 a month up by where I live. And people back here on the other side of the island were getting 300 gigs for the same amount or less even because of where they're set up. So it varies with that even, of paying the same amount of money and somebody's getting more gigs on the opposite side of the island. So I don't know if it'll do any better. So good luck.
Excuse me, but I jumped over Marcia there.
We really need to look at our motions, Tyler, before they go on pay. This is why I wanted a summary of what the motion refers to. And this is basically because of COVID, that kids are doing, home, online, virtual, or whatever. And they're having mega problems. But maybe when I look at this, it's really not helping, because Lee brought up a good point. I can't even use Wi-Fi at home, and I have to come here early to look at my agenda. So something is not working, we need to fix it. And the education of our students is in play here. My granddaughter, who lives with me, we tried virtual, going online, I couldn't even help her. So I asked for written homework. School has never provided me with written homework yet. And there's just a lot of problems. So we thought, and we were helping, we would help some of the families, but if they're not even getting the community Wi-Fi, all we're taking is this pot of money and covering the Wi-Fi department. That's basically all we're doing, right? Because instead of me paying the $80, it's coming from this pot of money, I'm going to Wi-Fi.
And at the end of the day, it's not improving the system.
Yeah.
James?
I mean, that's true to some extent. There will be additional costs as we bring more customers on board.
It still doesn't fix the system, no. Neva?
So we are paying to, what you're saying here is we're paying ourselves our Wi-Fi system. So would not put us at conflict for this. I know it's for our students and all, but I had recommended that if we are subsidizing our kids to get online, then we should issue each student, regardless of where they live, membership, amount of money to get them hooked up, do what they need to do, get their subscriptions for Wi-Fi or whatever they need in a way of a subsidy versus just just the membership. And so we talked about that and we thought, well, just this, and Marshall's like, yeah, talk about it for other children who aren't living here, who live wherever else, right? So it isn't fair, but it also seems like it's a little bit of a conflict when it's our Wi-Fi from our organization that we're paying ourselves for a certain amount of kids.
Anybody want to respond to that?
I don't think it's necessarily going in our pockets. I think we're supporting our community enterprises. But if that enterprise is not working, we really need to do something. And it's not working.
And I think that's the concern, yeah.
Yeah.
Valerie, then, I've seen somebody over here, so. Val.
Is it
Valerie,
ever going to be able to be improved though? Because if it isn't, I think it's just a waste of money to me. Like, I'd rather see us investing and getting everybody exploring that for a certain amount so that they have reliable internet service than paying for a system that only works like a couple hours a day. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Tyler, then James.
So isn't that what we approved upon your council meetings ago?
Like this?
No, the improvement of the Wi-Fi system. So we did make a motion on that to pay the bills to improve it. However, that's not gonna fix us right now. That's a long-term investment. So what I guess we're all looking for is how can we do the short term because of the situation that we're in because of the pandemic.
James?
The improvements to the Wi-Fi will be complete before the Christmas holidays. because the changes to the VLANs have to happen before the winter weather. And so that includes the doubling of the bandwidth and the doubling of the transmitters. Will that fix? I mean, there's other issues that lead to things like outages and other deficiencies. Some of the towers could be structurally improved. So, but overall, there will be, an improvement in bandwidth to customers. So that should take place over the next month or two.
And that's a guarantee, is it?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, as long as we wait, the further we get behind, all these students, I mean, like I said, COVID's gonna be creeping around the door soon, I'm imagining, and like I said, I'm battling to keep up. Like I said, I'm having to leave the reserve to do my work, and I'm doing that line hard enough, and so, like I said, I've had that over a year. And I've had upgrades, they've told me they've upgraded it, it just doesn't work. I mean, if we wait another 3, 4, 5, that's even gonna put everybody further behind than they are now.
Yep.
Like I said, I was on the verge of getting XploreNet. I was right, I got, the day XploreNet was supposed to show up, that's when I found out Landon College was gonna, so I said, all right, held off on XploreNet to see, I should have just stayed with XploreNet. That's just in my opinion, because they were there for an hour, they worked for 2, and were right back to nothing after the upgrade. So, like what Val was saying, I'd be more worth investing in something that works, rather than waiting around and hoping something works.
Good point. James?
And I think we're in the same situation where the other larger projects will take time and or money. So, what's that?
I'm just,
Sorry. Anything's possible. If we had improved cell tower coverage, we could look at LTE as a universal solution, but we're limited there. And in terms of fiber, it's a long and lengthy process. So
That's right.
community Wi-Fi is what we have that we're able to improve upon right now.
The issue at hand is immediate, and our technology is failing us, I guess, and no amount of money in the short term is going to bring us up to the need, the capability to service the students. So I think we're gonna have to make a serious decision. Do we import the technology, whether it's XploreNet or not, to meet that need there? And if we have to bite the bullet on that, we have to bite the bullet on it, because no amount of money that we pump into Wapelon community Wi-Fi is going to improve it over the short term. And we're faced, I guess, with the situation that our students within the next 4 weeks could be facing a lockdown and shutdown at the school over there, because we can see that emerging, that situation, that scenario all around us. And eventually, we're going to have to come to grips with that tough decision. And if it means spending more money, I guess, to accommodate and meet their needs for home school learning, then we're going to have to do that and create a manner in terms of looking at our resources from own source revenue and those monies that we can get out of ISC COVID money, as well as any other monies that we can identify to do that. Hopefully, in that period of time, our technology will catch up, I guess, in terms of providing that service. But ultimately, we're going to have to step up to the plate here and say that we're going to bite the bullet on this and meet that financial challenge. Valerie?
on that note, I was gonna say that I'm thinking that we should be putting something wherever the best Wi-Fi is and putting a little classroom or whatever these students need to do their homework, at least to help some of them. I know we can't do all, like, we'd have to line up like 10 or 15 portables, you know, if we wanted to be able to accommodate every student. But I think if we did at least a couple, and I know that the mall has supposedly good Wi-Fi, but can't we hook up something there? And rather than trying to depend on local Wi-Fi, it's just like, it's not gonna work. I don't know, maybe in the long term, but in the short term, we need to do something.
James and Tyler.
So we do have hubs in place now that are similar to what you're referring to. There could be the possibility of increasing them. We had a secondary hub and an elementary hub, and the secondary hub wasn't being used. So right now they're combined at the arena.
But do they have transportation there? That's another big problem on reserve, is that a lot of people don't have transportation, and if the parents are working, can we get the kids to that hub? Something has to be done.
We'll talk to the fleet manager. You're right, though.
Tyler, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, no, I was just actually said that, I was actually just made aware that, that hub existed at the arena, and I didn't even know about it. So I think, also, not only transportation, which you're right, is a huge issue, but, you know, raising awareness to the fact that these things exist, is also the thing that we should push.
Okay, we got James, then Ron, and we're gonna wrap up this discussion and move on.
I might suggest that we do an internal assessment of the Wi-Fi, because I have to admit, where I sit, I don't see some of what I'm hearing in terms of that it doesn't work at all. That's not what I see, so I wouldn't mind getting some more data. If that's the customer experience, it's not what I see at my desk. And I would like to learn more about that, to see if
You
the
don't
gas
live
are.
here, though.
Sorry?
Carol, sorry. But you don't live here, you don't know this community, I mean, like we do. Just-
Well, I had Fortinet with community Wi-Fi here, so I'm not that foreign to it, on a personal basis, but I interact with customers and in those interactions, like, I don't know if there are some that have just given up, right? But even the squeaky wheels, it sounds much more pervasive what I'm hearing at this table than what I hear in the day-to-day. But I mean, I use Fortinet myself, so I don't want to sound like a hypocrite.
Oh, I use Explore Net, that's why I do,
Right.
because I can't rely on Wi-Fi because I teach. I have to have the best I can get.
And that's exactly why I have explained it. At least I have a continuous signal. Rob?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think I talked to James or somebody else before about setting up these hubs. It might have even been the former director. And I suggested the arena, and I suggested here, the school, and at the library, and anywhere else that they could at night or during the day that they have space. And I think that needs to be still done. And the other thing is I think we're gonna have to use a mishmash of stuff. People that can get the Wi-Fi, the community Wi-Fi, let them use that. People that need other alternative, whether it's ExploreNet or something else, find out if their signal's good, and if it isn't with the community, let's look at getting them the ExploreNet. I think we're gonna have to use a couple of different ways, and if people want to use the LTE, maybe that's another way.
Sure.
Just food for thought of getting as many different ways as we can for those that are in the different areas to service their needs.
And I think that's how it's gonna roll out. You know, that, so it's clear that we can't depend on the community Wi-Fi signal coming in when it's required. And we're gonna have to look at a combination of those alternatives to service the community as a whole.
Yep.
So this was just intended for those students that were doing the virtual classrooms, or like he's taking classes. So we're expanding it to all, or is it just secondary and elementary at this point?
Here's the way I do it. The motion that was passed by the council was intended to service those already hooked up, I guess, with the community, the community Wi-Fi system. What I'm hearing now is the need for an additional investigation with costs to come back to the council with a recommendation on a service plan involving the services identified by Ron and others around the table here, whether it involves LTE or ExploreNet or other means, I guess, to get that necessary signal to all of our students. Is that what I heard?
That's true.
Yeah, okay. Can we have a motion to that effect then? Oh, wait, we gotta do it next. Yes. We're gonna move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Second by Tyler. You got the intent of the motion? Somebody does?
No, did council make a motion?
I believe it did. Yes, the intent of the motion is, it was moved by Valerie, second by Tyler, that this council approves, I guess, of, affirms the decision of the previous motion dealing with the community Wi-Fi, and also that a report be made back to council identifying costs on other options of technology, i.e. ExploreNet and LTE, to service all of the students on Waffle Island. That capture that? Okay. All those in favor of that?
Wait. So are you taking me out, declared opposition? Because I was opposed to the wording of it. I just wanted more clarification. Right?
No, the minutes as they are, they stand as minutes of the day. We can't go back and amend those.
All right, I just wanted more clarification, but, okay.
We can't change history.
And you know what, we did talk about post-secondary though, and that's not in that motion.
Because there was no motion, because they got moved.
Okay, we
And
voted on the
I said,
resolution.
FNTI students don't go to post-secondary.
Again, all those in favor of the motion?
The new
This
motion.
is the
The
new
new
one.
motion. Those opposed? I see none, the motion is carried. Moving on with the balance of the minutes. Any additional questions on those minutes? Oh, and before I lose my train of thought on that, do you want an accompanying motion from council to explore those costs for students off the reserve as well? I thought I heard that as well. Can I have a mover and second to that effect? Moved by Elaine, second by Cody. All in favor of that motion? Are there anybody opposed to it? None? Okay, carried. Moving on. Any other questions with the minutes of October 13th? Moved by Ron, can I have a seconder, please? Second by Burton, all those in favor? Those minutes are carried. With the noted discussion and subsequent motions. Moving on. To I lost my agenda.
I did too.
Special compliment.
Must be the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, excuse me, I lost my agenda.
Rest your case.
Okay, we're now dealing with the, doesn't identify, it just says casual, was it a special meeting?
Yes.
meeting, October 22?
October 15th.
October 15th?
15th.
Yep. Any questions on those minutes?
No.
Seeing none, can I have a mover for those minutes? Moved by Burton, seconder, please. You second it?
No, I would have a question.
Okay,
I just wondered if, we knew who these two visitors were, the community library. And just as two visitors,
two observers there.
because, we did identify the last minute, who, last set of minutes, who the visitor was.
Do you have that in your notes for the 15th? Yeah, at the bottom, there's visitors, two band members, observers.
Chief, I think it was Rex Isaac and his little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were here for just a very short while. and they-
One of the meetings.
Yeah. Just a note into the minutes, it was Rex Isaac and family.
Yeah, I think we should, put in here who attends meetings. If
I
they might
agree.
want to refer to that themselves.
Yeah. No, wait, we need a second here. Seconder, please. Second by Keenan. All those in favor of those minutes? Those minutes are carried. Moving on. Lost my signal. No.
Yeah. Really slow.
Okay, all right, yep, thank you. Minutes of, was this a regular or special? This was a special again?
Yes.
Okay. Special meeting of October 22nd. Questions on those minutes? Valerie?
I'm just, looking at the, letter that we sent regarding the Mi'kmaq, hunting and fishing rights. I think that we should send something to Six Nations as well. They have something going on there that's been going on for about 2 months. And there seemed to be last week some firing of, some type of, I don't even know what kind of guns these are, but some guns shot fired. So I think we need to send a similar letter in that case.
Okay. Do we know the group? I guess there's factions within Six Nations. There's the traditional people and there's the elected. And I believe this is the traditional people that are taking
I
a
think
stand.
it's impacting the whole community now.
I know it's impacting,
Yeah.
but there's a specific group that takes the stand at the confrontation
They're
lines.
calling themselves land back,
The what?
land back.
The
That's what
land
they're
back?
calling the group, so I don't know who actually is.
Well, we gotta
Find
know,
out.
yeah, we gotta know when we're sending a letter. Tyler?
Yeah, I just, I'm hearing about it, but I know there's probably more to it. Are we able to request if there is any type of official thing, like just to see, you know, what the issue is that it's been presented to us?
Mhm.
Can we do that? Is that what?
Yeah. What price?
I just, like, I know there's a lot to it, but, I'm seeing, some things that I generally wouldn't be supporting,
Yeah.
that is happening. So I just want to make sure that we're clear in what we're supporting.
And the note of caution I have is that there's factions within the Six Nations community that take certain stands that are in direct opposition, I guess, to the stance taken by the elected council there. And we don't want to get caught in any type of political crossfire there by making particular statements one way or the other.
There's, yeah, there's something that government is traditional.
I thought I had seen a hand over here first. Elaine?
It's not regarding this conversation, I just had another comment about our minutes. This is a special council meeting, can that be reflected? This says regular council meeting, but it wasn't. It was a special.
Yeah. And I think that's the point I was trying to make, to trying to identify them at the top there. Burton?
Yeah, I think we should look at that issue quite closely because the chief and council previous to the current chief and council at Six Nations actually entered into an agreement with the developer. So that's at odds, obviously, with the traditional council. So if we endorse it, are we endorsing the previous chief and council at odds with the current chief and council and so on? So we have to look at it very closely.
Valerie?
I don't care how we look at it. The bottom line is, it's indigenous territory. We're an elected government through through INAC, colonized government. That's the way I see it. We need to start stepping up and saying, if they're claiming their territory, we're right behind them. We have to decolonize ourselves. That's just my thought.
And I don't dispute that position there. I think that the council wants to take a cautionary approach, I guess, in terms of having politically do some research in terms of developing a position paper in consideration of that, those issues that are reflected by some members of the council. And I appreciate your comments.
Well, we're going to step up sometime if we want to be sovereign. Let's start acting like it.
Agreed. But also we have to act as responsible government as well.
Yep, that's being responsible.
Kim?
So just in saying that, I don't know if you've seen that you made the paper over the weekend.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that, because I think there was, I figured it was, the intent was for the support on the East Coast.
Yep.
But it's kind of, you know how things go haywire over the internet, so stuff that come out on social media, the intent went the other way, so it was perceived as a declaration on Lake St. Clair. So, which I didn't mind, I actually approved of it. I thought, right on, we're kind of moving our rights forward and asking or putting the recognition out there.
Right.
So that's the way it's been skewed, so just so you know, if there's a bunch of phone calls coming, here's where it came from. And I believe it was posted in the city after.
Yeah, and I've already received those phone calls and dealt with them. All day long.
Perfect.
But when I made that statement, I was just reflecting on a previous statement by previous chiefs and councils in terms of their stand and their ownership over surrounding waters and their historical involvement with the commercial fisheries. That we have some long-standing families here that are involved in that. And they were doing that even prior to the province issuing licenses for us to engage in our inherent right.
Yes, sir.
Additional comments?
Chief,
Yes.
so are we going to recommend that somebody look further into it to get the facts?
I was suggesting Amy look into that, if that's in her department.
Thumbs up. You might not have seen my thumbs
No, I
up.
just
And to add to Valerie's comments, it can be developed in certain ways that reflects our stand, I guess, in terms of jurisdiction and sovereignty and our desire to have land rights dealt with in a fair and just manner. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. I think there's enough instruction there. Continuing on with the minutes of October 22nd, if there's no further questions, I would entertain a mover and seconder.
My question.
Question, okay.
No, it's just, this is a personal note. I showed up late and it's not in there. I just want to make sure that you guys catch that. I don't want to act like I've been here all the time.
We're looking at
Unfortunately, I don't know if I might go, but it was after unfortunately it was after the presentation of the AK.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we have a record of the time you arrived somewhere, and that will be noted.
Okay.
Mover and second. Moved by Ken, second by Lyle. All those in favor of those minutes? Those minutes are passed of October 22nd. Moving on. James?
Yes, speak to the next item.
Yep.
So the next item are two housing committee minutes. They're being brought to council because they were more or less in advance. Normally, the housing committee would approve their own minutes before they would come to council. And we've had some discussion about the housing committee because in practice, what they would do is approve every loan amount in great detail. And so we brought this enclosed in camera as an closed item so that the names of the individuals aren't on the public agenda. And the practice has been to go ahead and move forward with the loans administratively as soon as they're approved at the housing committee. But the formal process is still for council to adopt them. So the one item though that is being held up that I want to draw your attention to is on the September 16th minutes, and this is the reason why I wanted it brought forward to council. And it's number 14 of the September 16th minutes. And number 14 is survey Snai Ballfield. There's a recommendation from the committee to survey lot 71-1, which is the Snai Ballfield, for future development. And the reason for that survey is we have identified existing lots in Wingish subdivision for the current round of CMHC homes. In order to apply for future CMHC homes, we have to identify surveyed lots for those homes. And so the housing committee recommended beginning to survey Snai Ballfield so that it's possible to apply for housing. If you wanted to, if you decided at a later meeting that you wanted to build those homes elsewhere, you could, but it is necessary to identify where are the surveyed lots where you intend to build the homes that we're applying, and identify those in advance. So that's the reason for that piece. We haven't moved forward with the survey. We moved forward with just about everything else. The other item here is the letter requesting a change in contractors. Again, this is something that would always go to the housing committee. We're looking at ways that we can administer some of this through staff guidelines, since we understand that's something the council may wish to consider. If you don't want a committee of community members weighing into these kinds of issues. So that's something we can bring forward at a later date. But the main reason I wanted to bring this here was to the decision point on the Snai Ball Diamond survey.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's deal with the housing minutes of August 31st. I have to defer, I guess, and I would ask that James chair that I have a conflict of interest.
Okay,
I have a conflict as well.
okay, Valerie's declaring a conflict.
I need a motion, but
They're declaring a conflict for the same item, number 10 as well.
Okay.
so we're quickly running out of quorum here. And
Is there a motion to appoint the chair?
yeah, I need a motion to appoint James chair.
No second.
That's good. Go ahead.
Okay, are there any questions or comments about the minutes of August 31st? Housing committee?
Did you get that?
I don't know.
Did you move on second?
How many conflicts been this?
Moved by Delisle, seconded by Keenan.
I just saw that number 10, I guess I'd be in a perceived conflict too, by voting on this, right? So does that leave us with a quorum?
We still have more.
Oh,
Five.
okay. All right.
So I'll ask for a mover and seconder. Okay, Elaine is declaring a conflict. So conflict's declared by
Which meeting is this?
August, housing committee minutes, August 31st.
Charles, Ally, Burton.
Yeah.
Can you identify which items you were in conflict with?
Number 10.
Which?
Number 10.
Obviously, I'm in conflict with number 10.
Yeah, me as well.
And wow.
Yeah, that is a quorum.
That's way too conflict.
Five.
How close do we have to be?
What's in the,
How far away do you have to be?
no, the terms of reference?
For her conflict?
Yeah. What's
First cousin.
first cousin and
Uncle,
Sibling.
sibling, mother, father, daughter.
Grants.
I don't know about that.
The first branch in my uncle Anthony, first cousin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, conflict.
Cody declaring a conflict.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Number 10 as well.
Raise your hand if you're not in conflict.
Still trying to-
I'm not-
Still trying to find these.
Carried by consensus.
Non-conflict, okay, so we have exactly that. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder.
Highlight?
No, not on mine, I have to look at Elaine's.
Moved by Lyle, seconder,
I'll second.
seconded by Ron. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Carried. Okay, the next minutes, September 16, 2020. Or, I guess I could ask for a motion. Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to relinquish the chair. Moved by Valerie. Second by Ron. All in favor?
Wait, then was that to do the minutes?
No, that was to give the chair
Yeah,
back.
that's what I thought, yeah.
No, I can rightly go home. You declare it carried?
This one? Oh, it's carried.
Oh, it's-
Yes, carried, sure.
Declaration. Okay, we're dealing with the minutes of, September 16th. Now go mover and seconder for those minutes. Moved by Ron, second by Burton. Are there any abstentions? Additional ones? None?
Just the way it goes.
I declare the motion passed.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on. Letter from homeowner requesting to change contractor. Oh, looks like I gotta declare a conflict of interest on this one.
That's still the October 20.
Mover and seconder.
I'll move the chair for James again.
Chair. So moved by Valerie, second by Lyle. All in favor?
Does that include the ones on previous minutes?
Dave's in chair.
No, okay. Yeah, it's a separate issue. I just saw it.
So who's declaring conflict?
We're the same ones.
Same one.
Same ones.
So, okay, the same seven declare conflict.
No, Elaine wouldn't be this time.
I have to declare conflict as well.
Elaine is not a conflict.
But Keenan is.
Keenan is. Sir, mover? Moved by Tyler, seconded by, you're not in conflict, Elaine?
No.
Second by Elaine. Oh, sorry. Any questions or comments? All in favor? And is there a motion to relinquish the chair? Moved by Valerie, second by Tyler. All in favor?
Thank you, James. Moving on, chief's report, we have a number of items there that we'd like to discuss. I would like to turn this particular, the details of this presentation, I guess, that we had received and the guests that we had received on it over to James, because it was, as I understand it, on the go previous to our arrival here. So for the benefit of council, we need to give a quick overview of that.
Sure. And Councilor Soni also met with John Bonin and Gawain Elliott, who are both working for ACON. And they're proposing a joint venture similar to A6N, which is the company that had the bid for the natural gas line into the community. That's a joint venture between ACON and Six Nations Development Corporation branch. So they're proposing we do something similar so that we can target preferential procurement in some of the larger projects in our area, particularly the same project we talked about earlier in the meeting, the Hydro One transmission line expansion in Lakeshore. So there's a presentation here giving some more information about ACON. The main advantage or benefit you receive out of this kind of arrangement is something close to guaranteed employment. and I believe we had 6 members employed in A610 when they were here for the natural gas line, and 3 members are still employed with A610. So it's a potential opportunity to train some of our members and allow a path for them to enter the trades. So they had asked that we bring it here, and they do have an existing agreement with A610. So there's a model, but what they're interested in doing is bringing in as many of the First Nations and the London District Chiefs as they can.
Following up to discussion, just a thought on that, can we refer this to our good friend the lawyer that was here earlier for his review and recommendation as to how we approach this deal? Agreed? Okay. Can I have a mover and second to that effect, that we acknowledge the presentation made by Jane concerning ACOM, and that we refer the matter over to Tim, to review the proposition and to make a recommendation back to council on how to proceed. Yes?
Comment?
Yep.
So just after we listened to this guy talk, really good, seems to know a lot of background. Prior to that, there was a consulting lawyer on that agreement, that chiefing council must have used to review it, and we got into the situation we were in. So he seems really wise in a lot of things, but again, we have to do some background checks on the different people that we're hiring. Just like that group went to the person we normally would call to consult to look over an agreement, we should do our due diligence and as well in this is checking out his references, background, etc. Just an observation and idea for going forward.
Any further comments?
Well,
Marcia?
I was relying on James. James did that background checking.
Yes, I'm quite familiar with him as a former colleague and him having been in the municipal field. He's worked in First Nations in Northern Quebec and in Manitoba as well. And the difference, I don't believe Lisa DeMarco ever made a presentation to council or ever had a formal agreement with council.
Valerie?
Like, I trust James somewhat, probably far as I can. But I think that we need to have some type of regular process that we go through when we do this. Because I got a lot of loyal friends too that I can bring in and say, that I know this person and they would do an excellent job. I still think we need to have something in place that we check, off, just like whatever it is that you did, due diligence, to make sure that we all know that this person is reputable. So if you could apply that, that'd be great.
Sure. I think the other thing we'd like to do is structure a bidding process so that we can bring a firm on board, so that we have a larger suite of legal services. This is more of a stopgap in the interim.
And Sadiq's engagement is on a job-by-job basis based on hourly rate, is it not? It's not like on a retainer type of arrangement?
Correct, it's on an hour.
Valerie?
I was going to say, as Neva stated, we have somebody that reviewed this document, or the agreement, and maybe we need to consider at this point who our in-house, or not in-house, who our legal counsel is going to be on certain matters. Because I know we have one for HR issues. So we have this person on economic development ventures, which is good because that's his area. We have Kim Thomas on corporations. I mean, we need to have set people who have expertise, so I think maybe we need to start going around with a person to replace whoever didn't look at that agreement.
And I do think if we can take the entire suite of services of what we're looking for, and we can find most or all of that in a firm, it could make the relationship easier to manage. Right now, we're dealing with, I think, at least 7 different firms.
No,
And I guess the thing with that is, these firms, I know we've posted for a solicitor, right, for the banks. All these firms are really expensive. So if we can, get that person hired into an internal position, I think we're cutting a lot of our legal costs, because they would be able to do a lot of the work. And I'm hoping that it'll be a person that's familiar with Aboriginal law, because if we don't, we're gonna start educating people all over again like we've done in the past.
and we did exactly that. Go ahead, James.
So I'd like to. that happens.
The other piece beyond 7 firms is many of our general practice suits are referred to our insurance, and then they appoint another lawyer that we're paying for indirectly in the premiums. So the advantage to an in-house lawyer that I like is that you can bring that premium down, because a lot of that can be done in-house much more efficiently. And the more complicated matters, you still need external lawyers. But we're doing a lot of what could be internal through insurance and through indirect premiums. We're paying for actuaries that are tangling us, who's responsible for what, and then bringing multiple lawyers. It's a very expensive process that we can find some cost savings.
I agree.
We get entangled in their game. It happens.
There was discussion at some point, I think it was in 2017, about having a due diligence process for any potential partnerships that come forward. So there is some guidance around that, but I would recommend that be brought out and cleaned up based on some of the lessons that we're learning right now with the situation that I just talked about earlier tonight. And that be approved by council, so that even before anything comes to council, this work is done.
Good idea.
Got construction there. Motion to acknowledge the presentation from James, I guess, involving the ACON and the desired follow-up. Moved by Lyle, second by motion, second by Lyle, all those in favor? That is carried. Moving on. Then indigenous engagement brochure, is that information or?
Yeah, that's the same.
Okay, part of that presentation. Six two, we need some delegates for, is it 2 of them?
2 councilors.
Oh, wait, that's, we need 2 participants to participate in a Zoom meeting? Is that how I understand? Or do they have to actually go on site somewhere?
Zoom.
Zoom, okay. Who would like to participate in that meeting? With the Tecumseh Development Corporation Annual General Assembly on November 19th. I believe we can pick you up here and join in on Zoom activities. Any volunteers?
Is that the agenda that's on the agenda? Or is that just an advertisement? Trying to look it up. Here we go.
Wasn't there an agenda attached?
No, it's the letter to Community Development Corporation.
Invitation?
Yeah.
I think the agenda is forthcoming.
It will probably.
So, Chief?
Yep.
It says, this letter says we have to appoint 2 additional members by form of a BCR.
That's right.
Is that what we're doing right now?
That's what I requested, yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking for volunteers, so we can name them in the VCR.
Who's a volunteer?
Keenan is one. Another one, please. Cody number 2?
Yeah.
To, be it resolved that this, Bend Council appoints, Councilors Keenan Johnson and Councilor, Cody Muskoka to be our delegates for the November 19th, 2020, Tecumseh Community Development Corporation Annual Meeting of Directors.
Just a question, does
Yes.
that mean Alan Jacobs is still the member then for the island? According to this letter? Your current board member, Alan Jacobs, is a member by virtue of existing corporate bylaws. Does that mean we're replacing him?
No.
No.
We're looking for two delegates to vote at the
Okay.
business that arises under the general meeting. I believe that's what they're asking for, and we're responding with a Band Council resolution as they have requested, identifying our participants of that meeting. So if you move a second, all those in favor? That is carried. You have the spirit of that, Luciana? Okay, good. Thank you. Moving on to the Giovanni Newton First Nations Energy Corporation shareholders appointment. They're requesting some new appointments. I know Lyle's been a participant in the past on that.
We're still sitting on those seats until we get either stay on there or removed by the band. We're requesting a band council motion.
Who sits on there?
We've got one with Lyle, we need another one.
Oh,
Steve's no longer on council, so I want to know, if you want to replace him, and I thought we'd Bert, and he's had previous experience, if he's willing.
We've sat on it before, it's familiar turf.
Okay, that's
I'll
all.
make that motion.
Okay, you're gonna appoint yourself?
No, I'm there till you guys remove me. So, but he's no longer here, so.
Oh, I thought the letter said that we identified 2 new members of this.
I think you have to be ratified, you have to be reaffirmed, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody has, if you're willing to stand, somebody has to make that motion.
Just to reaffirm him.
You know.
Eva?
Do all the new councilors know what that, corporation is?
no.
So maybe we can have some background before discussing further for the new members.
Is there a critical read on this?
Is yours
Okay.
highlighted?
Well, in terms of what, this is the equity partnership for the Grand Bend Wind Farm. So we have a 25% equity share, and Anjanam has a 25% equity share. The two First Nations have a limited partnership that we jointly own, and so these directors of that limited partnership that owns the equity share of Grand Bend Wind Farm, which I think is 100 megawatt.
Yeah, something like that.
100 megawatt wind farm.
Two chiefs.
So we have Lyle and Burton,
That's what I hear.
do you accept?
I'm willing to stand as one of the candidates, however, if new councilors want to experience, go for it. It's pretty straightforward.
Any other interested volunteers?
Yeah.
Valerie, you had a question there.
Oh, no, I was gonna make a motion to reaffirm that Lyle's still interested in that, in the board member.
I think we can cover it off with just the band council motion to identify the 2 participants on that board going forward. At this point in time.
Whatever, I'll make the motion.
Okay. Moved by Valerie, seconder, please. Boy, that's drawn out. All those in favor? My goodness, thank you.
Can we go home?
Moving on. Straight to Halloween events. We're participating in one right now. Volunteer you're volunteering? Okay.
I'll be there.
Stick,
Great.
raise your hands if you want to volunteer.
Not for both nights.
On Friday. Sorry.
What time?
I'm good for Saturday.
Monday, 12. Okay, on that basis, then, can we just have a note in the minutes that available counselors participate in the Kejman DD NIWAG Halloween events? Whoa, moved by Lyle. Second, Keenan. All those in favor? Okay, we got that important. I just want to give you an update as well. I forgot to mention it earlier, is that we do have an interested participant or person working on a proposal to lease the Big Shooters Hunt Club. It's a band member. Her name is Alyssa Sands, and she's working currently with Alyssa Reitman within Amy's department as a resource technician. And she wants to use the hunting club and some of the surrounding hunting grounds as a land-based learning and education business. She'll be looking at generating revenues from government grants, private foundations, socially responsible corporations, and eco-friendly business interests. Fees and revenues would also be generated from delivery of educational activities, including tour groups from external learning institutions. As well, the target market would be grouped into two basic categories. Number one, external capture, and number two, local on-reserve revenue generation through cooperative funding and collaboration with WAPU departments, namely the Heritage Center, Ontario Works, and our employment and training programs. And action required on this, I guess some type of acknowledgement by council to allow her to proceed, because I do understand she has a application into Corda for project funding to develop the Big Shooters Hunt Club for that purpose there. Number one, these are the actions required, and they're more or less conditioned. Project would go forward subject to successful lease negotiation with council for the use of the hunt club facilities and a portion of the hunting grounds in close proximity to the hunt club buildings. Another condition, project would go forward subject to approval of grant submissions and institutional financing. As well, item number 3, an action plan with costs would be identified and to agree to by all parties for the renovation and revitalization of the hunt club lodge facilities and a portion of the required hunting grounds. As well, here's a significant consideration for council, that the council would agree to convert a significant portion of the remaining hunting grounds under the former hunting lease. We would convert that to agricultural purposes for Tagani Enterprises. And this activity would also include a consideration for a corn-fed sanctuary with a number of resting ponds for migrating birds. So it's doing two things. I guess we'll be looking at leasing out the existing hunt club lodge out there and some of the surrounding hunting area for use by the project proponent. And the balance of that, we would look at converting over to agricultural production in order to combat the Phragmites. And maybe you could have some comments, I guess, in terms of approaches to combating that invasive species.
Certainly, it's a difficult invasive species to deal with. So there's various techniques, cutting it, burning it, and using flooding and drying it out, usually over the course of several years to fully eradicate it. But we are looking at, as a possibility in both that marsh and possibly in other areas, planting some of those areas with the intention of flooding them and using them as a sanctuary, and also over time eradicating the Phragmites. So in a sense, accomplishing two purposes. So I think that's what would be intended by the planting of that area.
Yeah. Ken?
I'm gonna speak to, the previous experience I had while I was there. So I was under, several management systems under different owners, and then I was an owner for 2 years. So, I like the idea, I like it being utilized, because right now there seems to be a fair amount of vandalism that's occurring there. So I think that from that standpoint, it's a good thing. The complicated thing is that there is 30+ private landowners in that same area, including the parking lot. So the van land portion, and this has been surveyed, and as I understand, about 8 years ago, there was a challenge in terms of who owned the lodge. But currently, from the way I understand it, it does sit on what they call the road allowance that goes across there. But where the parking lot actually ends, there's markers there for the private landowners. So the remainder of those buildings are on private land. So I'm not sure if this individual is aware of that. What makes it more complex is when you get into the northern portion of that wetlands, do you have the approval of all those landowners to convert their land? Which I would suspect that the majority would probably agree. There's gonna be probably 4 or 5, maybe 7 that are gonna oppose to having their marsh turned to agricultural land. So if you're prepared to deal with those types of matters, but that's kind of where the reality of things are with that hunt club. So just kind of the heads up, and then the other thing while I was there, I know that I got a funding grant to do, we did spraying on the north side for Frag. So what had happened, and I was trying to get Clint Jacobs down there to survey year 2. So year 1, we did the spraying. Part of the cost associated with that was I had to drain the marsh. So you cannot apply Roundup over water. So I had to drain that north side, and then we had to stay away from the main canals and stuff. And we sprayed the majority of it, but the result is I burnt it off that winter, and the next year we had endangered flowers come up. So the seed base is there if you can get rid of the frag. But now it's starting to reoccur. There's populations of where I had treated, which was 510 acres, at a cost of $150,000 at the time. So with that, the other problem that exists is that you can manage that area for frag, but just be cognizant that's going to be an ongoing thing because you're surrounded by frag.
Yeah.
So just like on the other side of the Chimatagan, you've got, well, the Chimatagan itself, but you also got Bush Marsh. To the south, you have Goose Lake Club, and to the west or to the east, you have Goose Lake. You're surrounded by frag. So if you're thinking you're gonna eradicate it in that area, the reality is no, you're not. It's an ongoing management effort. It's worthwhile, because one of the things that we seen was return of a lot of wildlife. And then one was the rare and endangered flowers that came back. So just kind of a heads up on that. It's a good thing, I think. But I would be careful about the costs that are going to be associated with that. And then I'm not 100% sure what the private landowners are going to say. So just be cognizant of that.
I guess in saying all of that, then the deal would be structured to the effect that it would be subject to successful negotiations. It goes with all the individuals involved with the said properties.
We're just considering about the frags and everything. You gotta think about, and the landowners, like you said, I don't know if any of you have been back there recently. Every part of that place is rotting. It's not safe.
That's right.
I mean, the marsh has taken over everything. The only thing that you can see there barely is the house that used to be there, the cabin that used to be there. And like I said, multiple break-ins and Like, I was hoping that somebody would fix it up, turn it into hunting, fishing education for all the members that don't have a boat, that have kids who wanna go swim, learn how to hunt, every aspect of hunting, ducks, deer, fish, whatever it is. I was back there 3 days ago, and it's been terrible condition.
It's returning back to its natural state back there. Tyler?
So, is the loan agreement, like, a part of that, like, what Alyssa's trying to get?
No, it's not tied directly to it. All of this is subject to successful negotiations by the proponent, Alyssa, in terms of securing the necessary lease agreements, I guess, by the individuals identified by Keenan, plus the utilization of the balance of the properties out there as well. And his cautionary note is that there's going to be substantial costs in dealing with the phragmites.
For the agricultural portion, and then Lee's side of, is it even like,
You don't get hold of it now, it's gonna be gone, I mean, right now, you can't hunt it, you can't walk around, you can't even walk around the property.
Yeah, and I guess you're identifying the urgency to this, that the council has been negligent, I guess, in terms of property management in the past concerning not only this hunt club, but also St. Anne's. If you go out there, you see that that is rapidly deteriorating to nothing. I guess that, we have completely lost any value in our property and asset out there, and it's now deteriorated to, it's a liability in terms of somebody getting injured or hurt because the doors are wide open over there and we don't have any on-site security and et cetera. And we've got to take better care of our properties going forward, I guess, in terms of property management, because we've let assets deteriorate. You could have stepped in and take responsible action. Cody?
I think that'd be a good idea for all the chief and council to visit these hunt lodges, to visually see what we're losing out there. To drive to the sanctuary and see what we once had and what's being lost out there, and what little things we can do to benefit our duck hunters. Just a little bit of a nudge and help goes a long way out there. Boat launches aren't being maintained, roads aren't being maintained, sanctuaries haven't been fed in 2 decades, quarter of a century. So little things like that, really benefit our hunting, and that's the reason why we're losing a lot of our duck hunting income, is because of little things like that. Whereas you don't need to hire a guide anymore from Walpole, because you can sneak right in and hunt Walpole all day long and shoot 300 birds and then go back home. And you're the duck hunter of the year, and it used to be really maintained out here, where our band members made a living out there. And now it's really, really difficult for our band members to make that living out there now. So I know when I had trouble in job loss, that's where I depended my income to be coming from. I always had jobs out there. I had to feed extra hard when the sanctuaries weren't being fed, and that's a lot of pressure on a band member trying to benefit himself out there. If we look at it as a community, we can save it. We can bring back our duck hunting. We can just a multi-million-dollar business that's being lost. So I think that would be real good to if we had a road trip out there and go see St. Anne's, go see, take a look at the marshes, go take a look down Big Shooters, take a look at the sanctuaries. It'd be really good beneficial for all of us to see what we're dealing with.
Well put. Elaine, then, I believe Tyler, you had your hand up? Oh, okay.
I just don't want to lose vision of what Alyssa's plans are, and her focus is really mental health. She works with our youth, she knows what's going on and what they need, and a lot of them need hands-on learning, land-based learning. She sees the need for that, and I think any way that we can support her, I think we need to do it. It's someone who's trying to start a business that's gonna benefit our youth. Like, how many programs do we have to benefit our youth? Like land-based, do we have them? I don't know, but I think the vision that she has, and she's certified mental health worker that can work with children, and I just think this is something that our community needs. And I think if we support her in these kind of initiatives, it could help a lot of children in our community who, they're not gonna learn, a lot of us aren't book learners. I wasn't a book learner. A lot of our kids aren't that. I can see the side of, yeah, we need to take into consideration all those things. But our vision needs to stay focused on our youth and what are we doing for them? What opportunities are we giving them? We have so many problems in our school right now. I just would like to see something, another opportunity for our children to learn in a different way. And just desire a love for learning. It's not always in the paper, it's not always in a book, and it's not always on the computer. Our people are people of the march, hunting. Nature, yeah. Nature is so calming. If scientific studies prove that once you walk into nature, once you walk into the bush or anywhere, your blood pressure goes down. And I think it's a really good vision that she has, and I would like to support her in it. And I think we all should be focusing on that.
Well put, and I think that external learning institutions, other school boards and universities and college are very hungry, I guess, for this type of experience. And they will pay a good dollar to bring out their classes to learn more about the ecosystem, the marshes, the wildlife, the flowers, I guess, that are out there, and to experience that we enjoy and that we should be taking better care of, I guess, over the course of time. Tyler?
Yeah, so just to reaffirm like what Elaine said, and knowing what Alyssa does is spectacular. And for her to want to pursue this is even more spectacular, and it's a huge undertaking.
Yep.
So what I was thinking is I don't want her to be set up for failure with what Lee said and not being a viable spot, right? And that it's really on us to help support that initiative because it's community-wide, even though it's Alyssa kind of taking it on, it should be on us to set her up for success.
Right.
Right? And then we get that, and just thinking about what you said, coming from the school board in Windsor, I can guarantee you I could have classes out here 4 or 5 days a week with that land-based learning, with our own type of learning. We are people of the oral tradition, where we originally are not book people. It's all hands-on. It's in our blood. It's our blood memory that gets us there. And that's what I notice, and that's what I see, and Elaine sees it too, and it's just, I think it's a great opportunity, but I just want to reaffirm that we do not give her a spot that's gonna, crash and burn. Right, we just can't do that.
It'll just take one for her to get set up.
Right, and so I'm just saying, like, we need to help her out, and it may take some time, like, rather than, but we just a comment, we really need to do it.
And we can do that. I'm sure that we're going to marshal our resources here to assist her in the ways that we can, I guess, in terms of offsetting necessary costs to combat phragmites, because that is an invasive species that's common to all our marshes. And at some point, we have to make some sustained effort to eradicate that, because it's destroying us. Keenan and others around the table have pointed out it's destroying our duck hunting industry and our ability for our guides to make money and support their families and stuff like this. The livelihood is an imbalance here. That's it, Valerie?
I was just gonna say that I think that's a really good idea that she's brought forward. I know the last council, we talked about making, I don't know if it's that, college into a treatment center. So I think there's a need for it based on what's, we see the social problems on the reserve. And I know that I, for the last probably 4 or 5 years, have been bringing my students from the law school out to, when Keenan was running that college, we would come out and we'd pay whatever it cost to come out there and get land-based learning experience for our students. So there's a need, definite need, and I don't know like how we can assist this person, but I think that there is a need, like Tyler's group, I'm sure all like different schools would actually pay dollars, you know, to do something, and if we can get maybe the university involved and try to clean that up, that might help.
Cody, then Neva.
Okay, yeah, I think this would be beneficial too for our own Aboriginal education. There's a lot of children that want to go fishing and hunting, and there's nobody to take them out. They don't have a spot, they don't have boats. So I think this would really be beneficial to our youth to get out there, to get that feel of putting your knife in a fish and cleaning it yourself and plucking feathers off the duck and putting it in an oven and eating it and enjoying it. These are things that our grandparents showed us. And this would kickstart that teaching back to life again. And I think this is beneficial to our community and our youth. And our elders as well. A lot of elders can't make it hunting. They don't have the luxury of paying for a guide. They could set up a date over there and, you know, an 80-year-old can enjoy an afternoon or a morning duck hunt and just feel proud.
Neva?
So Alyssa approached, or is she working for us? Are you saying she's working with Larissa?
Larissa's helping, so we helped in the helping to look for different grants that are available, and so she helped her with a grant proposal.
And we're also assisting with the, as she requires it, the development, the business model or a business plan to go forward with approaches to other funding sources, as I indicated there, to sell her idea and her concept, I guess, to potential supporters of the project. So we'll try to provide technical support where we can there in the absence of our functioning economic development department. So we have to step in and to try and support that activity. What I hear around the table here, that there's a gathering consensus, I guess, to support this project and to assist in any way possible to see that it succeeds.
I think it's a good stepping stone for doing everything that needs to be done. Like Cody was saying, we want this for our community, for our families, but it's just more than just starting one spot. As they're saying that, it's about the roads, the boat ramps, in my eyes, the unwanted visitors that are showing up in the middle of, it's not protected. In my eyes, it's not protected. I mean, like I was sitting in a deer stand and 5 people from Boston were right by my deer stand. I mean, those are the kinds of things that, I know probably in a resource protection job, but everything has to be there. Even the lake, the marshes, Rockwood Marsh, Bush Marsh, St. Anne's, we need to start giving back. And I think that would be a great stepping stone, helping somebody start that, saving that club down there. But after that, everything needs to be done.
Agreed.
On a project.
Bill Sands wants to be heard. Do I hear the pleasure of council to hear him? I don't see any opposition. Speak, Bill.
Yeah, I believe you're referring to my daughter.
I am.
Alyssa?
Yep.
She's making an effort to do something with our wetlands and our livelihood. This is my 58th year as a hunting guide and fishing guide. I haven't hunted yet, but I guided twice this summer. I had to do it on the American side. And my daughter is standing up. She just told me about it just a couple of days ago. She said, "Dad, I want you to be one of my consultants." I said, "I would gladly do that if you're successful." And, I want to talk about the negligence to our wetlands. Whose responsibility is that? It shouldn't have gotten the state it's in, by no means. We had a marsh committee, fishing committee a couple of years ago. It was doing really well. And that's the first time we've had a committee in a long, long time. And it was disbanded. I never gotten the reason why it was, but there are no more sanctuaries in our marshes. Not one of them in our clubs, to my knowledge. I was at the Canada Club for 10 years. I believe they have 6 or 8 ponds in that marsh, in that 3,000 acre marsh. They did when I left anyway. There are no sanctuaries. The birds have no place to rest. We have to get back into that. We need rules and regulations for our marshes that we have to abide by also, not only the outside. And that comes in with regulations. We adopted some, Lyle can attest to that. But we're in really bad shape. I'm going to tell you a story about when the American dollar was 60 cents. Somebody must remember that. That year, I had 1,670 customers at $150 US a piece. That's about $240,000 in 3 months. And Ron was working for me and his dad. And I took that American money to the bank. It was over $400,000 in 3 months. And not only I did that, the majority of the guys in Walpole Island did it, the Leans, the Scope, everybody. Keenan is well aware of that. It was great, world renowned. And all the banks out in New York, 100 here, from Japan, England, all over the place. And it was so good here, our reputation. I had a job in Russia. Guy came hunting here, my friend, 50 Windy friends, I was in Detroit North. He went to Russia to hunt ducks. He got over there and they didn't have mines, they didn't feed the ducks. Those Russian people were really tough. My friend, he's about 60, 65 years old at the time. So he couldn't keep up with Russian guys. So he sat in his chair at night and he said, I'm done. He said, you shot some ducks. He shot, not many, 8 ducks maybe, but it was unlimited. There was no limit. And he said, no, he says, I'm done. He said, he sits in my office all the time. But anyway, he said, well, these 2 brothers had a lake, as big as Lake St. Clair, 100 square mile lake, and just loaded with ducks. And he says, you got to congregate the ducks. And he didn't know what he's talking about. So he says, you can go shoot 1,000 pound wild boar tomorrow. I'll take him to South Carolina. I didn't come here to shoot boar. I come here to shoot ducks. He said, do you want to learn something? You come to Walpole Island. I know my friend Bill Sings. So he came here. We hunted on the lake shore. We hunted in a marsh. We hunted floating ducks. And the guy had a great time. And he said, well, Bill, go with me. He's asking. So we were at the Ocean having dinner. He said, Bill, I want to hire you twice a year in the fall and spring. They have 2 seasons over there. But you can't do it in the fall because I got to do it with my customers here. And I says, yeah. So they started the lodge, and then communism collapsed at that same time. I wasn't going with the thing, but he came here and he was really impressed with what he had here. So he wanted to do that in Russia. But I never did go. But anyway, this place was just unbelievable. Boston Wheel, all the auto industry, they were all here. It was great. And again, why did this happen? How could this council let that happen to our marshes? And I paid my guys well. I updated my equipment every 2 or 3 years. The guys get in the boat, the guy would jump in, 1 start. He wanted to start. That was impressive. But we can bring it back. I spoke to the past chief and council. They said it's gone. Can't bring it back. We can't bring it back if we don't try. But my daughter is trying. And I'm really glad to see her and you facing this council. It's a big concern. The guys that used to work for me, I employed 8 to 15 guys almost every day. I was booked solid, and I'd be booked by the 1st of March, 80% booked by the 1st of March to the season. But in the Phragmites, They're here to stay if you don't do something about it. I have 2 little corn ponds on Squirrel on my property there. I dug a hole, planted corn through there. Come season time, I started feeding, broadcasting the corn. And after the birds got in there, I had 5,000 to 7,000 ducks in each one of those ponds every morning, every night. It can be done, but you gotta work the land. That's Friday money's not one way. When I was at Big Shoes, 1990, I was the first one to get a club. And Slim DeMars, you guys remember the Slim bulldozer? I hired him, he went out there and he was out there for an hour and he'd come in, knock on the door. I said, come on in, he says, Bill, I got a problem. You know what I'm saying? At that time, the roots were like this. He said, really having a hard time with the bulldozer. Don't want to quit? No, let's get that sanctuary done. Before I got there, someone covered it up, but you need a sanctuary. And it was successful. And these clubs have to have sanctuary, that's in their lease. And rest areas. And Indian guides, that's not happening. There's a lot of Shugnosh out there guiding on the lake in our clubs. It's gotta stop. I pleaded with our past leadership to make these changes. They didn't want to do it. But, like I said, I'm glad we have a new face in the council. And I think you guys are doing great, but came here to listen. I wanted to come before, but I get tired too. But I'm enjoying what I'm hearing. It's really good. Yeah. Let's do it. Thank you.
How does council want to proceed? We heard comments, I guess, from around the table there. You kind of know the essence, I guess, of the proposal that's being put forward by Alyssa there. And I guess we can do at this point to support what we can in terms of her endeavors to negotiate with the individuals, individual landowners to state our support, I guess, for the project because it's sorely needed, I guess, this type of education by the Shugnosh, I guess, in terms of the riches that we enjoy. And at times, it appears, based on Bill's comments and others, that we've taken for granted for so long and not really tended to maintain and nurtured over the course of time. So, how do you wish to proceed? Do you want to support the law?
I think if you look at it, we are the owners of that building up there and we're in charge of it. We have an obligation to keep that to a decent, it's our asset. It's a valuable building. It's a cedar lodge. It's nice. It's beautiful. And Shirley said that thing on that. But I think as owners, we should be spending some of our money on that. Because in the future, we're going to be using it for all these educational purposes. I think that justifies any more money that we have to spend to bring that break wall back up and put the fill in there and you do whatever dredging has to be done. So I would look at, again, like Bill said, we had a task force, a hunting task force a few years back. That task force was really doing well. We had a lot of senior hunters come out and their whole purpose of coming out, they want to teach the youth. There was guys here just pounding on the table almost, saying they want to teach their nephews, their grandchildren, how to hunt ducks and all the morals of hunting. Not going out there and slaughtering 50, 100 ducks, but going out there, taking their limit and coming home a pig and eating what you got. But that's the stuff that's got to be taught to youth. And these senior guys, they're still around. They can do that. So if we upgrade that lodge and Melissa does that, and Tyler provides all those people to come and look at it, I think it's money well worth spending. So.
Marcia.
The vegan counter over here. I think we really need to offer our support wholeheartedly in principle, because there's a lot of unknown costs right now.
Yep.
And we need a cost for getting that building safe and for access safe and everything. And I don't want to discourage our young people coming forward wanting to do these. That's why we're here, because we said we want to improve the lives of First Nations people, children, families, So I really support it as well, but you heard earlier, we don't have a handle on our finances. We don't know where we are. And we need to identify, I guess, where we would come, where the money would come from, before we commit anything. But I really encourage, women to work with this young lady and see where we can help and approve of this in principle. And as Bill said, let's get it done. We can't commit money we don't know we have.
And that was covered up by item number 3, an action plan with costs, I guess, to be identified and agreed to by all parties for the renovation and revitalization of the hunting lodge facilities.
Gee, where are you?
That's part of my report. I just finished it off this afternoon. I didn't have a chance to forward it, but I will give a copy to Amy, and she'll give you a copy of it. It'll be on your system tomorrow morning sometime. I apologize for that. Valerie, then,
I was just thinking that, maybe we could, strike a task force to work with them, because I would like to help her in any way I can.
absolutely. Excellent suggestion.
I would like to help her too. There's a lot of different places where, I'm not sure if Larissa had done the Grant Ontario search with her and some of the keywords and stuff, but I think for a lot of those proposals, you need like an endorsement to support her proposals, as well as maybe some of our past resolutions that might support it, the Children's Bill of Rights, and the language document, all those things to support her. But there is big money in wellness, Aboriginal women, in business, and also there was grants before to take old motels, hotels, lodges, and turn them into healing retreat centers. I'm not sure if that still exists, but there's a lot in that, and the arts. So I think, that's a wide open range of funding that could be utilized there, but I think she would, it would help her to have a letter of endorsement from Chief and Council.
And we did supply her a specific one, I guess, to the quarter program that we had prepared and sent it off with her funding application. But we can prepare a general, I guess, endorsement on behalf of Chief and Council to support her fundraising efforts and her development efforts, I guess, of her project. And we can do that. I hear, go ahead.
I'd like to be part of that working group too.
Okay.
So I've got familiarity with applications for wetlands restoration, so there is a lot of money in that as well. And then I could help out with other kind of on the ground things.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea, and I tried to give some direction before in talking with James about St. Anne's Club of revitalization of the marshes. And Keenan pointed out earlier, you just can't do a certain one. And that's what I was saying is we need to do them all, because you need to revitalize the whole marsh to get back. And it can't be just piecemeal. I think you're gonna have to, well, it's gonna have to be for the immediate time. But I think you're gonna have a strategic plan of phases or how you're gonna do this, and have a cost, somebody that can come in and help us with that. Because it's good to have people take over these or work with these areas, but we gotta have a plan and a work plan and how long it's gonna take in a budget, because it's gonna take a lot of work.
Yep.
And I've been out in the marsh quite a bit this past year, and I'll tell you what, it's nothing like I remembered it. And I wouldn't have to wanna walk around it with her and retrieve a duck or go looking for frogs or anything else, because I'd probably have a heart attack. But it's bad out there.
And I was fortunate enough to see pictures from 30 or 40 years ago concerning St. Anne's and the other clubs. And those things, those operations were manicured. They were sparkling operations in terms of being almost like off-site hotel units and stuff like that, and almost world-class dinners and the service they got.
Yeah.
So we got to get back to that. I see that we have Amy?
I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what Ron was saying there, just in that starting a working group for one individual project when you haven't yet done committees might be jumping the gun. If council specifically focuses on writing proposals for individual community projects where we can support that from a technical level, then it keeps council from doing the bigger planning and the policies. So just as a note on that, because council needs to put those big plans and policies in place and the overall march. And from a technical level, we can absolutely support the grant writing. So just think about that.
I don't think we're gonna lose sight of that, I guess, that end goal, but I think that the council senses an urgency, I guess, in terms of doing something to revitalize our marshes and our assets, I guess, in terms of the hunting clubs and their uses, et cetera. And we have to take immediate action, and Alyssa is presenting us with an opportunity to make that first step and that collective action to work towards that strategy that you have identified. And I'm all for, I guess, the support in setting in motion this working group, this task force, whatever you wish to call it, to support the development of her proposal and to provide that technical assistance. Is that what I hear from the rest of the council? Valerie, then Martian, we gotta conclude the support for this particular project.
Well, definitely we need that type of technical support. It's just that we would do the stuff like the planning and all of that, the things that need to be done. And things that can help her along the way.
Yep.
So not specifically
Not
working on
specifically, yeah, actual
proposals, but yeah, that's what I was hearing. I was like, oh, you guys would be good for that.
but we know the police supply.
Order. We're getting a little off base here with the 9 different discussions going on here on how we're going to interact and support this project without getting anything done. Marcia.
So this is a turning page for council to actively support our membership for those people who come forward. And I just want to make sure that we're prepared to do that and entertain any other entrepreneurship that wants to help improve our island in whatever way. We should already be offering these services with all our programs. We should already be offering all of this tech stuff and all this other stuff, business plans and everything. So I think that we're turning the chapter here and we're saying, yeah, we're not just talking, we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy, and this group here, everyone brings something positive to this table every single time. I mean, we deal with some really tough things, but everybody sits back and you can see the little wheels turning and they're thinking. And I just wanted to say that I'm really glad I'm working with a great group of people and smart people and experienced people.
I thought I'd seen Elaine.
No.
Keenan, then back over here. We're going to conclude this.
I'll be quick, just on a smaller note. This is kind of like a bigger picture of things, but just bear in mind, there's things that you can do at home on your own too. So I've been doing this all along, Valerie's very well what I do, but tomorrow, for example, I've got a young teenage boy and he comes from a single parent family, just his mother, but nobody in his family hunts anymore, right? So he's interested. So they came to me and asked if I would take him out, and I said, yeah, no problem, right? So, and I've done that with my own kids, their friends, who are in that same situation. So there are things, it's not necessarily always hunting or fishing. Some of them like to walk in the woods, some of them like to see other parts of Walpole that they've never seen before, that sort of thing. And then there's even grown-ups in this community who have never seen the lake shore. And I've catered to several families out here and just kind of showed them what was out there, because I grew up out there, so I know what was there. So there's things that we can all do. So just keep that in mind and don't get lost in the bigger picture of things. Just remember, a lot of those small things count too.
Final comments?
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. It's not about urban, it's about our land. For me, protecting our lands and doing something that, and plus that, providing a service. I mean, as the end goal, that's how I see it, as the land needs to be preserved and protected, and that we are giving someone an opportunity to actually get things going.
Yeah.
Because she would be the one doing that part of the programming. We'd be just looking at how we can help, save the land and get it back to that state that it was. That's the way I see it.
And I want to provide my thanks to Elaine, I guess, for bringing the young lady in to bring forward her project and to discuss it with me and to subsequently assist her, I guess, with the development of a bit of an action plan going forward and the availability of Amy's help to help further develop the project. And it's good to hear that we got a consensus in terms of a buy-in to support this project on the council table. Well done. And did we deal with a motion yet to identify this task force to assist with the application process? Can I see those hands again that are willing to assist and guide this revitalization project? Lyle, Valerie, Neva, Lee, Cody, did you move? And Cody and Keenan. They are identified as the working group or task force to assist Alyssa Sands in the development of her land-based learning and education project concerning traditional skills, etc. And that would be coordinated through the governance office led by Amy Johnson. All those in favor? Carry. Do we have a vote second?
Well, I was gonna say, we're making.
We did it by consensus. I'll move. Moved by Tyler, thank you. Second by Lee. Now, all in favor? Carry. Let's take a 10-minute break.
Sounds like it's needed.
Yeah. I was talking about consensus, and then I saw one.
Is it midnight yet?
Oh, come on.
I want to get out of here by 10, just.
because I don't know where to take it.
I still put it aside, but it goes in the door.
Thank you.
Oh,
I just don't have the supposed to help her, just usually set up a appointment and say, I have this vision, I want to do this. That, you know, she's, yeah. She went through a lot of it, so fast. Yeah.
you know, because I'm just like,
So, but yeah, because you is like, it's just, she took the 3-year course, so she's all certified.
What's the priorities left on the agenda?
Got what the briefing note for spending limits, and then distribution. Not close. I got issues about, some got no,
But I think.
highlighted blue information on them.
Yeah.
We had to leave because we need more babysitters for the grandkids. Whatever grandkids.
No choice on that one.
No.
James, I'm gonna ask you to prioritize what has to be addressed, balance of the meeting. I want to get out of here at 10 o'clock, and I'm sure that others will be out.
I think we could go quickly.
Call us back to order. They asked to take over from the babysitter, so we departing. And we will conclude with a quick itemized approach to priorities and leave the balance for another day. I'm going to leave it up to James to identify those as he knows what's needed from the administration side. Go ahead.
I don't want to skip over CMHC.
I would do it for sure. Yeah. Do you want me to quickly?
Sure.
Okay. So Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, we've applied multiple years in a row for Section 95 rental housing. It's the Wingash Trail subdivision. So every year they require a VCR for us to get the ministerial loan guarantee. So this has already been approved by council in October of last year, I believe it was. So the 250,000 was approved. This is just the approval for the final step to get the funds to the First Nation. Got a motion there to approve this.
I have a question. Go ahead. Can this apply to individuals?
I'm sorry?
Can these dollars be used for individual loans with the ministerial?
Not under this program.
Is that possible though?
Council would have to agree to support individual ministerial loan guarantees. Council's never done that before.
I believe they have in the past supported under an old CMHC program that was available on reserve construction by CMHC. This is a while back, but it still needed that important piece, I guess, the guarantee by the First Nation to, I guess, be the one to go after, I guess, if there's a default. But yes. Let's see the hand over here. Good idea.
no, I was gonna, she was gonna, I thought she was moving it, I said, I'll second it.
I'm just thinking of the real lack of housing.
Yep.
We need to really be creative. And, you know, if they default on a loan, there's, you know, penalties, but just saying it, I mean, other First Nations have done it. You know, we can't rely on our peanuts that we get from housing. It's not working. We really need to think outside of the box.
That's right.
That's what I wanted to
We
say.
have to look at and explore all the possibilities for funding. Well,
I'll say something. Now, I agree with that too. The only thing is that for those people that don't have land, this helps them because they can like bid, I don't know, like the process for getting those houses, but they can put their name in, and then when they pay it off, then they get that piece of property, right?
In some cases. So just for clarity, this is only been in place, we've only used the Section 95 for the last 3 or 4 years. And it is not the regular housing funding.
Right.
So this is the first, so in a while, first step outside of the box. And there are other programs through CMHC, and I think as housing department builds more capacity and gets more ability to do more things, they'll utilize those programs.
There is a VCR.
Yeah, so we just need, so we just need approval of the VCR. And it's one of the attachments. I don't see it.
There's a
Valerie made a motion.
I made a I'll make a motion.
Okay, all right.
I'll make that motion.
Valerie moved the VCR wherever it is. And second by Lyle, all those in favor of the prepared VCR concerning the CMHC housing? That motion is carried.
Okay.
Carried. Go ahead.
Emergency control group minutes are for your information to review. Nothing urgent there, so I'm going to continue.
Oh, I just have a question.
Sure.
I had a lot of community members call me and ask me, what can we do for Halloween? So I see that you've talked about it in your minutes, but how does it get to the community? How do they find out?
I will follow up on what we have available. But we've talked about it in terms of we want to make sure there was still a patrol. Just so everybody here knows, we consider trick-or-treating safe as long as the trick-or-treaters are coming from a core household. The safety issues come when you have multiple households trick-or-treating together or parties. You sometimes see that around Halloween, so we're discouraging those. But trick-or-treating, much like drive-through fast food, is very low risk. So keep that in mind. It's really the multiple households together that we worry about.
And I guess one of the other minutes stated that once a child gets sent home sick, then the whole family is supposed to isolate. And I don't think our community conveyed that message, but I see it in the minutes.
So it's actually not true. And so that was just a point of clarification because I think that question had been asked by somebody. So if we're looking at the same one, October 14th, everyone in the home is not required to isolate.
They're not required to isolate.
Correct. So it will be on a case-by-case basis because there's a number of factors to consider. But the best thing to do is to work with the health center if you do have any questions about that. Okay.
Moving on.
So strategy for homeless update. We do have staff from the various social programs getting together tomorrow or Thursday, and we're moving forward on a coordination plan. And we're looking at some possibilities from a number of groups that have come forward that are still asking about, is there some way to assist in tiny homes on private property? So that's an ongoing discussion, but I think we could have a long discussion. It's still a what-if scenario right now, but we're trying to find ways to facilitate that because that seems to be a need for many people. St. Anne Island Hunt Club. I was going to bring a written report, but I didn't have the cost confirmed until just before this meeting, although what I had estimated was very close to the ferry manager. So we did visit St. Anne Island Club. There was a site visit with Larissa, Resource Protection, and Rob Seal, who's a hunt manager on a couple of other nearby hunt clubs, to make some recommendations regarding the buildings in the marsh. What he's recommending regarding the buildings is demolishing every building except for a warehouse it's a large warehouse in good shape. So I can go into a bit more detail on Thursday, that might be more appropriate.
Okay.
Okay, and so we would be looking for some costs to support the ferry business to do some remediation work.
9.2? Is that urgent?
Casino funding request?
There's a prepared recommendation there. Does it speak for itself or does it need more explanation?
It speaks for itself.
Okay.
So
Can I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation regarding the request to casino Rama funding?
I
Marcia?
have questions.
Yes.
Is it- What are we approving? Oh, hockey registrations?
Yes. So there's, I think there's 15 to 17 hockey registrations, for $500 each.
Okay.
There's one ballet school, and there's one for, assisting somebody with a laptop for homeschooling.
Moved by Ron, second by Keenan. All those in favor of the recommendations?
Education provides laptops.
This person is being homeschooled, so.
Yeah, they provide it for homeschooling.
This is not in our community. So this person being homeschooled by their parents, like they don't actually belong to, work.
Okay, well, just, thanks for the explanation. There's a lot there, but I'm not gonna.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We have a call for the vote.
Yep. And we get the two conflicts, so.
Okay. You got that recorded,
How do
Sam?
you know you're in conflict? Is there names
Yeah,
on
there's no names on you.
How do we know we're in conflict?
You'll never afford to see you do that. See what happens when you're here.
But it doesn't say anything. Okay.
We have program managers that oversee health, education, budget, and we're stepping on them and spending money out of their budgets.
No.
No?
These are elements within the casino Rama funding source.
So,
But we have our financial,
so Casino Rama works a bit different than their programs in that it says that it needs a council motion to approve the funding expenditures under Casino Rama guidelines. That's why it comes to you with this.
James, further explanation?
But I think we do hear you in terms of a desire to do this differently, where we can have allocations from council to programs that would divvy it up. We would be dealing with that at this table. So we're having discussions about how we can do that. But we're doing that kind of thing in several areas, so it's going to take a bit of time. But
As a matter of fact, we should go back a little further, that at one point in time, there was a draft policy involving the utilization of Casino Rama under more of a program type of structure with an administrator, et cetera, to handle the requests and to go through a formal application process with an independent board to make the selection. And here's what's really necessary in terms of utilizing those funds, is a follow-up report on how those funds were actually spent and how they were utilized. We're in the habit of here, just handing out the check and here's your money and so long, you know, like we never get a report that they actually get registered. Did they actually go to this training course and stuff like that? What were the outcomes of the results of the money that we spent? And we never hear or see a follow-up report on that. And I think that's very important for the utilization of this fund now. So maybe we could explore that, I guess, and bring it back for distribution and discussion purposes.
Know exactly where it is.
Okay, good.
So just to be clear, I have a sheet here with a bunch of laptop and then 18,774 for tuition and education. But that's not part of our motion. Our motion is for only $11,025 from health and 500 from education, right?
That's correct.
So why are we getting these other, is it just a running sheet?
So that is to show that everybody who applied right now to date, so the one who applied for education, under education, we refer them back to education, to make sure they go through Bermuda first before they come to any other table.
Yeah, so what I think, sorry, just to chime in, on the right-hand side, there's been no suggested amount as of yet, so we're just approving the suggested amounts on the right. The left is what was requested, but on the right is what's coming, or what's being approved, basically. So that, like, the 18,000 is checked. Because of what Robert said, to send it back to education.
So for the furnace one, we recommend that they go to housing and get a proper housing loan first before they come back out to.
Might be a case of too much information being presented.
Yeah.
Neva,
in this briefing notice is that, the council put together a committee to review the request. So right now, we don't have a finance committee meeting. So these recommendations are being approved and recommended by yourself.
Yes.
Just yourself only?
Pardon?
Just yourself only?
Well, they come in and normally I would present the finance committee just like this and ask finance committee to make a recommendation to council. So we have a number of people who are applying for hockey registration right now and they would like to get them paid. So I can't offer that, so that's why I'm bringing it here. So I make a recommendation for council to approve these expenditures.
The answer is yes.
But at finance committee, wouldn't there be discussion about the applicants, that kind of stuff, more detailed background?
There would be. So it goes back to the guidelines of, we only allow up to $500 in the first 6 months of the year. That's what this is based on.
Yeah, just for the committee purposes, it was brought before us as a last chief and council to have some terms of references and other things for committees coming this term. However, there were some that spoke against it and said, wait till the next chief and council come in and do it and have a crack at it or whatever. So all this slipping and sliding that we're doing and stuff, we'd already had this in place, I believe, to some extent. But there was people that were opposed to it. So now this is what we have. We're almost 2 months into our gig here and we don't have nothing and we're waiting to do our committees. And usually, and why I'm saying this is because I'm kind of feeling frustrated here right now, is that, we usually have a orientation and we strike a week aside. That's why I said that before. And so all this would all happen hopefully in that time period and picking of the committees as well.
Yeah.
Usually we make a motion. I remember Charles and Keena would know that we would mandatory have orientation where you're gonna be there or else. And that hasn't happened. So whatever happens, this is the reason why. Which
I'm gonna suggest we table this for Tuesday.
Next
Good
Tuesday.
idea.
Unless everybody's prepared, I think the idea behind this is to make this available for hockey registration while we fine tune the process. But if you want to discuss this further.
I think we have the pleasure of a council, I guess, in terms of the decision.
I thought we were-
No,
I thought we already.
We don't know for sure, we haven't set a date for orientation, so I would just go ahead and if Robert did all the, background checks that he needs to, the details he needs to do, and in accordance with the financial regulations, I think we should just go ahead and approve, instead of holding things up.
Yeah, I like that.
I just have one.
I thought we approved it.
we approved us.
Well, it's approved.
If they're only allowed to 6 months or 1,000 for a year, why is there $2,000 on the bracelet then?
Because for medical purposes, you can't get braces for $500. So
No, I don't understand, but that's the basis that the community knows is that we're only allowed 500 for 6 months.
yeah, that's for sports. Now, it's a bit different for medical assistants, it's up to 2,000.
Okay.
But I'll say it again, I have no problem, I don't want to hold up anybody, any kids not having a hockey registration. My concern is, this information has to be to the whole population so that everyone understands what they're entitled to. I don't like hearing, well, it's word of mouth. Well, the family, we come back every year, and I have people calling me and they say, I need help. I have seniors who are saying, I had to decide to either get the medications I needed this week or not eat. So we're really negligent in getting information out to the community and to the members. So I don't want to hold up people getting what, especially we want to encourage sports. We've already said that. And I mean, these are health issues. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, we've already approved of the motion and it's been carried, so let's move on. Valerie?
So I was just gonna say that, casino rabbit dollars are broken into, like, I think they used to be, into community development, yeah, like
5
different
elements.
areas. And if they don't fit into those, then do they have to go to a program, or they have to go to OW, or whoever else can help them? And there are limitations on certain, like, health benefits, so I think that they wouldn't be asking if they had approval already.
And I have confidence in, that Robert would know what the stipulations are, or the guidelines, I guess, to put forward recommendations based on those, parameters, I guess, for approval. James?
We were talking about the history of this because prior to about 6 or 7 years ago, members would come to council requesting something.
Yep.
And council would say, can we use Casino-Rama? And then there'd be a recommendation from finance, and they would pull it out. So a decision was made, let's create a small committee to review these applications. And that's where it really evolved into what you're identifying, Marcia, in terms of many individual applications coming in, where that used to be much more rare in my experience. So I think there could be a way to look at creating a program where there can be that kind of intake still, but this is fairly intensive for council to go over these individual applications, and it evolved into.
Well, again, one last point, I guess, in terms of Marcia's concern, I worked on the policy development for the Casino-Rama program, and we went through the complete phase of developing the application approval process, a policy and guidelines to support the disbursement of that, including an evaluation, a necessary evaluation report that would be secured by the program administrator. And that fell by the wayside, that the council at the time wanted to be the one that's approving, or the chief would be the one that's approving these requests. And that went totally in the opposite direction, I guess, in terms of opening it up as a community-wide program with defined application process and approval process, et cetera. And here we are, gone full circle.
So did we vote?
We carried this about minutes ago. I made the mistake of opening it up for further consideration. Moving on, James. One last item and we gotta close her down.
Recommendation, if this is a no-brainer, I suggest going ahead, otherwise we can table this.
Hurry up.
So we would be moving the directors to 10,000. We've already done that to one director, but this would add our community development and community well-being, lifelong learning directors. And it would increase my signing authority in the chiefs and finance to 50,000. It's currently at 20,000. So this would reduce the number of items that come to council. The majority have already been budgeted.
Discussion.
I think I need a little bit more time to reflect on this, because I agree the signing authorities have to be increased, but they have to be within approved budgets, and this group here approves the budgets.
Yes.
So I know some First Nations got in trouble because they had a little cohort of people, and they were able to siphon off millions of dollars because they all had signing authority. So I agree, the chief, the political, the director. What is the director of finance as the overseer of the budgets to make sure everything's in line? Spending authority. Do you see where I'm coming from?
So why don't we table this and we'll bring it back.
Motion to adjourn. Move on around, Marcia. All those in favor of adjournment? Carried. That last item is tabled. We'll pick up our agenda with the special counsel.
Good job, Chair.
Any suggested dates for special council meeting?
We could carry it along on Thursday.
We can try, we'll try and tack it on to Thursday agenda. There's only a few number of items left on this one here, so we'll conclude that. Okay, we'll see you on Thursday. 5:30.
5:30.
5:30. Thursday.
5:30.
No more creeping in the marsh.
I know, but look at all these paper sites,